There are lots of young people who are interested in having a positive impact on what happens in their lives and in the lives of their community. And citizenship should provide a bedrock of activities, of experiences to allow them to do that.
Chris Waller is Citizenship Coordinator at Millchase Community School in Hampshire. Chris has recognised that effective citizenship education depends on a whole-school approach. In this programme, Chris guides us through a series of lessons offered to a Year 9 group by teachers from 3 different departments. The lessons have been timetabled across a single term to help students identify connections to the central theme of human rights, one part of the citizenship curriculum.
This morning I want us to talk about landmines and unexploded ordnance, or UXO.
We begin with Chris's own subject, personal, social and health education. Chris has chosen a topic which will challenge students and stimulate discussion, the issue of landmines.
So, 3 things. What are the human rights issues around landmines and unexploded ordnance? How are people's lives affected? And lastly, what can and should we do? Now that is real citizenship, where you think about how has this affected you and what does it make you feel.
Chris asks the class to consider this real issue in the context of real legislation.
I'm going to give you one piece of paper that has some extracts from the European Human Rights Act on it, and one piece of paper that has some extracts from the United Nations Rights of the Child. I want you on your table to discuss which of the human rights are affected by the placing of mines at that site.
Chris's lesson is designed to offer students plenty of opportunity to develop skills of inquiry, communication and participation, all skills at the core of citizenship. To fuel discussion, Chris has sourced materials including dummy landmines, maps and campaign postcards from carefully vetted organisations such as Mines Action Group and Landmine Action.
I don't think that people really want to do this because they're endangering children's lives by putting them by a school playground. It's not right.
The children are only innocent anyway and haven't done anything wrong to deserve this.
Young people need to be empowered to have a view. What is the relationship between the way in which human beings behave towards each other and some of the agreed tenets of basic human rights? And that's why I chose today to use both the United Nations Charter as well as the European Human Rights legislation, so that you've got 2 things that are, I'm not making these up, they're real. And I think putting landmines into the context of children's rights and human rights is a good way to illustrate this issue. And of course, by having the replica landmines, you can actually bring the topic alive and talk about, you know, things that are affecting people. But generally speaking, our young people aren't going to see this.
Each group has been discussing a different landmine site on a map, and a spokesperson presents the group's conclusions to the rest of the class.
What did your group find out? What did you decide were the human rights infringements, violations here?
The right to an adequate standard of living.
Yeah.
And the right to have clean water to wash their clothes.
How can somebody like you or me actually try and have an impact upon this issue? Here's what I'm going to do. Give each pair on each group a card. I would like you to decide who you would address this card to and what message you would have for them. We have been involved in letter writing campaigns for about 10 years now, every Human Rights Day. Young people take part in this campaign, like with the cards today. It's a very real part of it. It embeds the idea of taking action in their subconscious. Tell me who you've written to, first of all.
You wrote to Mr. Tony Blair.
You've written to the Prime Minister. Good choice. What is your sentence, please?
In a number of countries, 5 out of 6 UN rights are being broken due to the cause of landmines, causing a huge amount of innocent lives to be lost.
That is brilliant. That is really powerful. Thank you. Who have you written to?
UN peacekeepers.
What have you said?
If you know where these mines are, help these countries to feel safe and keep the peace.
Fantastic. Citizenship isn't necessarily about right and wrong answers, it's about grey areas. Young people often experience, their experience of school is about right and wrong answers. 1 and 1 is 2, it can't be 3. But attitudes to landmines are divided. So it's promoting this feeling of grey areas that you can talk about, and that you move to a greater level of understanding, and that it's not necessary to have a right or wrong answer in citizenship.
Whilst citizenship may have a natural home within PSHE, it can and should sit easily across the curriculum and across school life.
We need to get from you an emotional drawing. Okay, we need a drawing that shows that you understand all the issues that we're trying to talk about here with the children soldiers, with the captivity. And what I want to do today is to show you how another artist has done that. We're going to look at an artist called Henry Moore.
In art, the Year 9 group has been looking at another human rights issue, child soldiers. Teachers Steph and Abby are focusing on the techniques of Henry Moore as inspiration for the project on child soldiers. Moore's paintings convey the suffering of people during the Blitz. Students will have to convey the suffering of child soldiers in paintings they will be creating later in the term.
Child soldiers, they had a hard life. They're only around our age, but they had to go out and fight a war. When you actually see things, it really brings to life what's happening. I'm sort of trying to catch how scared they were. I like the ink effect that they've been using, like this sort of one.
It shows people in distress and not very nice places, and how he captures the moment with just instant painting and colouring.
Already, having just started the project with them really, they're coming to us saying, we've done this with Mr. Waller, we've done this in history. Yes, they've written letters and things like that, and they want to do that in our department too. Just because it's art, it doesn't mean we can't include that, or history or languages or whatever. There's room to fit it all in.
Citizenship is an open door to working with the wider community. Chris often invites useful visitors into the school. Hannah Davis is a former pupil who has spoken at teacher conferences on peace education and peer practice.
It's a bit different learning about this in art, isn't it? But how does that help?
I think art's more on the emotional side. With the pictures, you see the feelings, like the colours and the textures and the tones. You can see what an artist is trying to display, how people felt and what happened during the war.
So it expresses the emotions of the people. What type of emotions do you think they are?
The emotions are like disgust, anger, sorrow.
There are so many issues within citizenship that relate to children, and I think here, you know, we've chosen child, soldiers because our children are saying, what, they're my age and I would have done this, and we've made them realise that this could be them, and that makes the work even more emotional and really does come from in here, as opposed to us just saying, right, this is a worksheet, this is citizenship, we've got to do it, let's do it that way. You know, the more of a connection you can make with them as teenagers, the better it's going to be.
Chris has also identified citizenship opportunities in history, where Year 9 has been learning about the Holocaust with teacher Paul Stenner.
Some of you will be working on children in the concentration camps. Some of you will be looking at children in the ghettos, which are areas of towns that the Jews were moved into.
The theme here is young people. We talked about young people with the landmines and the UXO. Now we're talking about young people under a similar stressful situation, different context, but the connection to human rights issues, about rights and wrongs, about times when things go wrong, is exactly the same.
Paul has collected worksheets and case studies from the Holocaust Trust and the Imperial War Museum. A teacher's pack from the US Holocaust Memorial Council includes Jewish ID cards issued under the Nazi regime. At the end of the lesson, students will each take one away as an aide-mémoire. Students from Year 11, who have been involved in Holocaust workshops in the past, have now volunteered to help the younger students with their role plays.
So we need to have some volunteers. Who's going to have the main part? Who's good at acting?
I'm not good at actor.
Yeah, I don't know what you're like, so...
If you were here with Hitler, putting all these things on you, telling you weren't able to live the way you wanted to, and you weren't able to socialise with who you wanted to, how would that make you feel?
I'd feel annoyed because I wouldn't be able to speak my mind and say what I wanted to say, and I'd be held down by Hitler telling me what he wanted me to do.
And you wouldn't be able to do what you want?
Mm-hmm.
5 Year 9s and a Year 11. There's no teacher needed. Jamie's the facilitator to their learning. That's the level of confidence and competence that you want. And for me, effective citizenship in school is where young people start to put back into their community, for example the school, their experiences, their enthusiasm, their skills.
Roleplay is an effective way of helping students to consider a life and an experience very different from their own.
Martin, I believe you're a member of the Edelweiss Pirates.
Yes, true.
And what is it that you do?
We stopped Hitler's youth patrols killing the Jews.
And how do you feel about what you do?
Well, we're willing to put our life on the line to stop the Jews getting killed.
It feels like Hitler's taken away my personality.
So for me, again, things that are active, where young people actively engage in the learning, in the issue, are critical to the success of citizenship. Citizenship is not, we're going to learn about landmines or Henry Moore or the Holocaust and you're going to sit down, I'm going to tell you about it. It's active, sharing ideas, taking part in things, moving around, things that are very powerful ways in which young people improve their learning. If I had to define citizenship in one sentence, I would say citizenship is an entitlement to all young people, and it is the ability to offer young people a real experience that they will take beyond the school gates and into their lives.